What's up, everybody? It's Man of Low Moral Fiber here. My name's Luke, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Good Touch as part of my Does It Suck series. The Good Touch is very closely related to the Bad Touch, which I had previewed, or demoed rather, in my previous video, and I'll leave that linked in the description of this video in case you're curious about checking it out. But as you can see, they have very similar stats. They are very similar weapons, and you get them in the same way from tipping Moxxie at her bar and Sanctuary. You can see that their stats are virtually identical. Don't really need to go over the differences, but I guess I'll mention that the Good Touch has slightly higher damage over time than the Bad Touch. And I guess maybe they did that because corrosive damage over time lasts a little bit longer. But other than that, these weapons are pretty much identical. So much so that the red text even relates. The Bad Touch says, "When I'm good, I'm very good." And the Good Touch says, "But when I'm bad, I'm better." Obviously, the Bad Touch is always going to be in corrosive, and the Good Touch will always be in fire. Both being Moxxie weapons, they are going to have healing, and they also have a 70% critical hit damage modifier. Now, in addition to that, the Good Touch is also going to vibrate your controller or gamepad if you're using one, and, that's kind of to allude to a vibrator effect, or a quote-unquote good touch. So we're going to get started here with my Maya build. This is my Blurred Trickster build, just with a legendary Catcalm thrown on. I guess theoretically I could take points out of Life Tap and Elated and throw them into Quicken, but it's not going to make that big of a difference. So we're just going to use this build because it should be more than sufficient. I am also going to be using a Bone of the Ancients and a Slag Grenade for extra slagging, and obviously I might not need the healing from this transfusion here, but it can't hurt, and it's also a good extra source of slag. Now, obviously, the Good Touch is healing at overpower level 8, even though it's not a huge percent. Since you're dealing so much more damage than you actually have health, you're going to be able to heal yourself pretty quickly. Wanted to kill that guy there because he had a shield, and this weapon obviously doesn't have the splash damage to go through his shield. So when you have a Nomad with the shield when using this weapon, you're probably going to need to phase lock him in order to kill him. But, that's not a huge deal. I guess I'll let this guy go ahead and shoot me here to lower my shield and health a little bit so that you can see how quickly this weapon will heal me. Alright, so as you can see, it heals my health bar that quickly. That was obviously a critical hit against a slagged enemy, but if you're able to hit those, you'll keep your health bar up, pretty well. Another Nomad here with the shield. You can see that the critical hit damage modifier on this weapon definitely makes it kill enemies very, very quickly if you're actually hitting critical hits with it, which is actually fairly easy to do considering the weapon has a very high accuracy. So even with the little accuracy penalty that the legendary cat class mod carries, it's still a very straight shooting weapon, and that's good. You may have noticed I just killed an Ironclad there. Some people don't know it, but Ironclads are weak to fire in their head or critical spot, and that makes them easy to kill with fire weapons. I like that this weapon does go ahead and reward accuracy, because that's pretty cool, and that's something that stylistically I like about a lot of weapons. Having the extra damage on critical hits is definitely nice, and something I like about this weapon quite a bit.
Hold it right there.
You can see when I actually hit critical hits with this weapon, it kills enemies very quickly. Just make sure that guy stays slagged. Couldn't really see him though because of the visual pollution. Maybe I shouldn't have thrown that slag grenade. But as you can see, when I hit criticals, this weapon just absolutely rips things up. That guy's torque weapon is making it hard for me to see. Alright, so now we'll kill whatever badass is going to pop out of this door. First we're going to kill this Ironclad though. I'm kind of standing in the pocket right now, not worrying too much about cover, because I know that if I were to take a little bit of damage, I'd be able to get it back pretty quick using the Good Touch. Unfortunately, I am going to have to wait until my phase lock comes back to kill this guy, because he has this shield, and like I said, this weapon doesn't have the splash damage in order to take him out through the shield, like maybe a Plasma Caster would have. Cool, so having no issues right now working through the Bloodshot stronghold. Obviously, all these enemies are going to be weak to fire in some capacity, and That's definitely a good thing for the Good Touch since it is exclusive to fire. But you can be using the, wow, there's an enemy with a shock damage over time weapon over there. So we'll have to watch out for him and try to kill him kind of quickly. Nice. Oh, fire damage over time. Looks like we got a kind of Maliwan weapon set on these enemies right now. Sometimes when enemies spawn with one weapon set, they all kind of have it. So that makes this particular run a little bit more dangerous because these damage over times might be a little bit more prevalent. Sometimes it's not even what enemies that spawn, it's what weapons they spawn with that can make a run a little bit more dangerous than another run. And that's something kind of cool about Borderlands 2, that almost every time you play it, it's going to be at least a little bit unique. As you can see, though, the Good Touch is having no issues working through these enemies here in this room. And this room's actually kind of dangerous. The enemies will try to flank you and execute other strategies in this room and stuff. And obviously, it's a pretty crowded room, pretty narrow, and you may end up getting flanked or whatever in this room. So it would be nice to have healing if that actually did happen. Unfortunately, that guy got phase locked where I could not see his critical hit spot, and so that kind of sucked. That's alright though. We're still killing enemies, and it's still going pretty quickly.
Please stop.
Do watch out when you phase lock things, because phase locks converge will go ahead and bust barrels, and that's something you have to watch out for. One enemy behind me here. We'll go ahead and finish him off, and then we'll go into Mad Mike's room, and I guess that's where we'll take this video to. This weapon only consumes 1 ammo per shot, and it's going to be very ammo efficient with respect to the very large ammo pool that SMGs do have. So as we work through this Mad Mike room, we'll find a couple badasses, and eventually we'll get to Mad Mike, who's going to have a usually very dangerous rocket launcher, so we'll have to watch out for that. This guy has a very dangerous shock damage over time SMG. I think maybe the healing effect from the Good Touch helped me out a little bit there, so that was good stuff. Oops, I missed that guy with my slag grenade. Excellent, he got slagged, so now we'll kill him. Nomads kind of demand phase lock in this case because I can't really shoot around their shield. They'd be very difficult to kill without phase lock. Luckily, Maya has phase lock, so that's good stuff.
Gotcha.
Alright, so as we work up this ramp, some more enemies are going to be spawning, and once we kill all of these guys, Mad Mike will go ahead and spawn. So before Mad Mike spawns, I am definitely going to want to make sure that I have phase lock active and I'm over near him, or at least in a spot where I can phase lock him, because he is going to be very dangerous. So I might just leave that Psycho for last, because I know I can kill him without phase lock pretty easily. Which will ensure that I'll have my phase lock active when Mad Mike is going to spawn. Sometimes just a little forethought goes a long ways when playing Borderlands. I guess I'll take out the Ironclad, why not? Cool, so one of those lunatics survived. That was definitely a good thing. Another Ironclad here, so I'm actually going to kill this guy and leave the Ironclad. He's a little bit healthier. I'm worried that chain reaction might end up killing that other smaller lunatic if I did pick up the Ironclad. So there's one more enemy back here. I'll go ahead and take him out, I guess, before I spawn Mad Mike. I hope this doesn't end up spawning Mad Mike. Sometimes he spawns with 2 enemies left, but it's not the case this time, so that's good stuff. So what I'm going to do is get ready to slag and then remove this Ironclad. Slag him with the Slag Pimp there. I like it very much as a slagging weapon. And this guy's almost dead, so I'll get myself a little bit closer to where Mad Mike spawns. That way I can definitely pick him up without issue. Reload right quick. Now Mad Mike will be spawning. We're going to pick this guy up. Try to find his critical hit spot. And that's good. So we got 2 more enemies here. I think one of them died just to chain reaction. This other guy's got a slag weapon. That's better than if he had a shock weapon, I'd say. So there you go. Looks like there's one more enemy in there. We'll take him out. Kind of demonstrate the range of the Good Touch, which is pretty high for an SMG because of its accuracy. we'll let these guys come to us before I go ahead and do the outro here. But I think, as you guys can see, this weapon definitely does not suck. It's a very powerful weapon that I think, is up with some of the higher tier SMGs in the game. It has some special effects that are really nice, such as the healing and increased critical hit. And beyond that, it also has very good accuracy for an SMG, and also the increased critical hit damage modifier is something that I very much appreciate, both in practice and just kind of as a thought. I think weapons should very much reward critical hits like this. So that's something I really like about the weapon. I quite like the Good Touch. I think it's a very good weapon, and definitely in my mind it does not suck. Quite far from it, actually. I think it's a very good SMG. So as always, guys, I thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you haven't yet taken the time to subscribe, please do so. I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, I do hope to catch you next time. Happy New Year's, guys.